they are the only animals that eat lichens in great amounts. Lichens are a unique substrate for ruminants because it contains, it's very low in protein but very high in energy, carbohydrates. So it's rich, it's like a chocolate, high energy feed that keeps them going through winter. But it's low in protein, so they have to eat other foods, other plants to compensate for that and to make sure that they not go into a negative protein-nitrogen balance. Well, they migrate between winter pastures where lichens can constitute a big part of the intake, but on the coast and in the summer they prefer vascular plants and herbs and easily digestible, high quality foods. So this is mainly a part of the winter diet. The diet changes because the quality of the plants, the chemistry of the plants, the digestibility of the plants changes through the season. So the diet also changes. And they have adapted to cope with that. And also to tolerate eating the lichen.
Is it a difficult food to digest?
It's easily digestible if you're a reindeer and you can cope with all the secondary components that are in the lichens that are normally toxic to other plants and humans. And we're trying to find out how the reindeer actually are able to utilize the lichens and the components in the lichens, like the lichen acids that are toxic. So our hypothesis is that they have microorganisms in their rumen that actually detoxify and degrade the lichen acids, the usnic acids in the lichen, and therefore enables them to utilize and digest the lichen without being hard themselves. Studying the microbial, or what we think is the microbial degradation of lichen acids that occur in high concentrations in lichens. And of course it's natural to people that work with reindeer that reindeer are eating lichens. It's so natural that we don't even think about it. But I don't think that people have thought about the fact that reindeer are the only lichen eating ruminants. And we want to find out how the animals have adapted to eating this unique substrate, because lichens are very different from vascular plants like grass and herbs. They are actually symbiotic organisms of fungi and algae or cyanobacteria. This is a picture of the Cladonia stellaris, which is the reindeer lichen commonly eaten by reindeer. The lichens are very well adapted to a life in surroundings with lots of UV light, ultraviolet light. And to protect themselves from these lights, they produce pigments or phenols that absorbs and protects the lichens against the UV radiation. And one of these pigments is the usnic acid. And this one is it's a yellow pigment, and you can actually see it in this box, bright yellow, and it gives the distinct color to many of the lichens, and you can actually see it on this book. This is a typical pigment lichen with lots of pigments in it, so it gives a yellow to orange color. And it accumulates in high concentrations in the lichens, up to 7 to 8, 9, 10% of the dry matter can actually be usnic acid, which indicates that it has biologically important functions in the lichens. Otherwise the lichens wouldn't use all that energy to produce this usnic acid. But the usnic acid is toxic. Lichens, they grow very slowly and they need protection against herbivores like insects and other animals that might eat them. And they also need protection against microorganisms. So the usnic acid is actually known as an anti-herbivory compound and also as an antibiotic. In US, a company actually produced usnic acid containing tablets as a slimming remedy for people to lose weight. And there were reports of people that entered hospitals with liver damages and that actually had needed liver transplants, and also brain damage. So that tells you how toxic it actually is. And also there were reports about 300 elk in Northern America that actually died due to poisoning with usnic acid because they'd eaten lichens. And we also know that usnic acid inhibits the growth of gram-positive bacteria, viruses, fungi, and actually also cancer cells. So it inhibits the growth of the cancer cells that they've studied so far. So it's a very interesting, intriguing compound to study in many aspects. So how can the reindeer utilize this toxic lichen with the toxic usnic acid? We know that the reindeer is a ruminant, and they have a compartmentalized stomach with a big rumen containing lots of microorganisms, and you can actually see some of them here. These are the ciliates that are the big ones, and actually the smaller ones are the bacteria. And also in the forestomach, the rumen, you find anaerobic fungi in high concentrations and in a large diversity. And these microorganisms are the first one to face the usnic acid and the lichen when the lichen enters are eaten by the reindeer. And our hypothesis is that these microorganisms have developed, well, they have of course adapted to this substrate over millions of years of adaptation, and we know that the microflora in the reindeer rumen is unique. It's different from that found in sheep and cattle, and we think that this is a result of 15 million years of evolution and interactions between the pasture plants, the lichens and all the other pasture plants that the reindeer eat, and the microorganisms in the rumen of the reindeer. So our hypothesis is that the reindeer rumen bacteria have developed mechanisms to degrade and detoxify these usnic acid, these secondary compounds found in the lichens. So our first project in figuring out how this, if this is actually how the reindeer cope with the usnic acids, was to start screening through bacterial isolates from the reindeer rumen. And I had a student, a German student called Alexandra Kuhn, who came up here last summer and did a project on screening these isolates for resistance against usnic acid. And we were lucky, we found one isolate that actually were able to grow in the presence of usnic acid. These are plates, culture plates with bacteria spread all over them, and you can see that we've added small tablets with filter paper and added the usnic acid in different concentrations, and most of the bacterial isolates created inhibition zones around the tablets, indicating that they cannot grow in the presence of this acid. But we found one isolate, one strain, that grew all the way and over the tablets with usnic acid. And this strain actually turned out to be a novel strain that had never been described before. And we were fortunate to be able to name that strain. It's called Usneabacterium rangiferina. It's a novel genus and a novel species. And we're currently in the process of trying to have this paper published. It's a gram-negative anaerobic non-motile rod, and it's resistant to usnic acid. Actually, when we grow it in presence of lichens, it forms clouds of cells around the lichen, and we can actually see that it attaches to the lichen particles, indicating that it has no problem in tolerating the usnic acid and the toxins in the lichen.
we know that due to that there will be an increase in UV light in the future. And we think that this may actually result in higher concentrations in usnic acid in the lichens. And our question is, will the reindeer and the rumen microflora of the reindeer be able to adapt to the future possible increase in usnic acid in the lichens caused by climatic changes and increased UV light? So this project is actually funded by the Reindeer Research Fund and the University of Tromso and the Norwegian Research Council, and also the Roald Amundsen Center for Arctic Research. And we are also part of the IPY EALAT project, so climate change and reindeer husbandry. So that's part of the work with looking at adaptations of the animal to future climatic changes.